Hello YouTube! Here's a question for you. What do Singapore, Monaco and Japan have in common? Apparently all three of them are less safe than the Isle of Man. Let me try and explain. If you follow Isle of Man news, then you may have noticed a story this week that claims the island is the 6th safest country on Earth. That's quite a claim to make. Of course, a brilliant good news story that was immediately picked up by all the local news outlets, and I'm fully expecting a government press release to follow shortly. But as with all things on the internet, you should always be skeptical. You should always check where the news comes from. And I figured there's enough reason to do a quick video to have a look at where that came from and if it's actually credible. Could it be true? Are we indeed the 6th safest country on Earth? So the news story came from a report done by a website called Numbeo. That's, as I understand it, a mostly crowdsourced, crowd-powered website that compares quality of life, such as the price and crime index and the general quality of life of countries and cities around the world. And it is powered primarily by the users. As far as I can tell, it has around about 800, they claim to have over 800,000 active users that take part. And the claim of this 6th safest country originates from what they call their crime index by country mid-year 2024 report, which I will link to below. So it's not a story that they put out, it's a report, a list, basically, a list of countries they put out where they rank 140 something countries by how safe their users perceive them to be. So it's not them, I think, looking at crime stats. It's the users of the site saying how safe they feel, which you could argue is probably not a bad way to do it, because if someone does live there, then he's in a good position to judge how safe it is. So that's how I understand how it works. I'm going to link to it below so you can have a look at it yourself and make up your own mind. It's probably not super mega statistically safe or scientifically perfect, but it's certainly more than just Dave from Portsmouth saying he really likes a place. So I think it's probably, can be considered a relatively legit story and a legit bit of research if you want. So on this country list, they are listing, it goes from the most dangerous and it goes down at the bottom of the list. You then find the countries that they, according to this report, the users perceive to be the least crime-ridden places on Earth. Now, top of the list are countries that you would expect to see there, places like Venezuela, Haiti, Afghanistan, and other destinations for people who want a holiday with a bit more of an adventure factor. And then as you go further down, the UK, I think, is somewhere in the 60s, 62, thereabouts, so midfield-ish. Not exactly safe, but not Venezuela, which is probably accurate, I suppose. And then, if you go towards the bottom of the list, 6th from the bottom, so by that logic, indeed, the 6th safest country on Earth by that list is indeed the Isle of Man. So it's listed there. Only places like, I think it was Oman, Qatar, UAE, Taiwan and Andorra, if I remember correctly, that are considered safer than us. I've been to most of them, and I would probably agree that they are also safe, if not safer than the Isle of Man, or that I would feel as safe, if not safer there. So could it really be that we are the 6th safest country on Earth? Yes, I think it's totally credible to say that, unless as a perceived thing. I'm sure there are, other places. I mean, this puts us ahead of Singapore, puts us ahead of Monaco and Japan and those places. So, yes, I think as a perceived, crime, how safe you feel in a place, if that makes sense. Yeah, I kind of believe it. And I've been telling you this in my videos for many years, that the Isle of Man is a wonderfully safe place to live. That doesn't just feel safe, but it actually is. So now you're probably going to say, come on, Frank, this is slowly starting to sound too good to be true. You're constantly telling us it's this paradise, and now you even come along and say it's the 6th safest place on Earth? Seriously now? There has to be a downside. There has to be a rough part. Be honest. Fine. I'm always honest when it comes to the Isle of Man and telling you about it. Always tell you the good and the bad parts, so you can make up your own mind. So fine. You want to see the rough part of town? You want to see Skid Row? You want me to show you the not so glamorous areas of the island and its glorious capital, Douglas? Just because it's you, because I'm always honest, I'm going to wait till it's dark. I'm going to grab my camera. I'm going to risk it all. And I'm going to go for a wander around the rough parts of town, just to show you what the not so great, the not so nice, the dodgy areas of town look like. So here it is. Here's a look at the rough part of town. Okay. Before I now get loads of angry emails and phone calls, I am of course only kidding. There are no real no-go zones or dangerous areas in the Isle of Man. The two areas that I just showed you are Pulrose and Arnica, and they're both in Douglas South, which just so happens to be my Douglas City constituency. They're both perfectly lovely areas. Loads of families live there. A lot of our social housing stock is there, old and new. They're very, very lovely areas. Now, Pully, as Pulrose is affectionately known locally, has a reputation, or I should say had a reputation, for being a bit rough in the past. I think that really is in the past. It's now a very, very nice area. And Arnica, actually, where I'm right now, and where also my GP is around the corner. And again, it's a very nice area. Lots of families live here. Now in Arnica, the pub here behind me, that's the Heron. That actually did once make it onto an episode of Britain's Roughest Pubs. And I'm going to dig out that episode and link to it below. But again, that was like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, something like that. And when you watch the episode, it has a certain tone to it that I don't think really applied back then, and probably, certainly doesn't apply today. It's television, so no. There are no bad areas in the Isle of Man, certainly not in the way that you would know them from certain UK cities where, you might be afraid to go into certain areas at night or go somewhere alone. It just doesn't exist here. It's a very, very safe place. I've never ever felt unsafe here, and I don't really know anyone who has ever felt unsafe here day or night anywhere. So does all this mean there is absolutely no crime on the Isle of Man? Of course not. As the men and women in this building here behind me in Douglas will be able to tell you, yes, we do have crime. And I'm linking to the Chief Constable's annual report below, so you can have a read yourself how much crime we have here and what types of crime we have here. I think where we are quite fortunate is that we don't have very much serious crime. And with that, I mean the kind of really bad stories that make people feel unsafe and that you see and hear about in the news. For example, there's no big stabbings or gang warfare in the housing estates here. You can walk along Douglas Promenade with looking at your iPhone, and nobody will cycle past and rip it out of your hand. It just doesn't happen. Also, if you park your Range Rover outside on your drive, there's a 99.999% chance it's still there in the morning. And the 0.0001%, well, that is some random drunk who walks home from the pub and who sees that you left the key in the car and who takes it home to save himself the taxi fare. Apparently that has happened here before. So take your key inside and there's pretty much 100% chance, almost 100%. I think the number of car thefts, check the report, is very, very low. And where are you going to go? It's an island. You can't take the car off the island. So these kind of things that just don't exist here. Yes, it certainly does feel very, very safe. And we are fortunate that what crime we have is not of the very serious nature that you see and hear elsewhere. Having said that, as I said in one of my previous videos, we have seen some crimes here that I thought I would never see here. And now that was quite a shock. Such as the human trafficking or the slave labor case. And of course, the case that is still going through the courts now, where we had a sort of international scam center that based itself here under the guise of e-gaming. Never thought we see that kind of thing here, but organized crime of course always looks for weaknesses and ways to make money, and luckily it was caught, and hopefully this will influence the way the police and authorities look at this in the future. But if you do read the annual report of the Chief Constable, you will see that most of the crime we have here is probably drugs and alcohol related, and is sort of, if you're not into the drug circles, you will see and hear about very, very little crime. Of course, you see it in the newspapers. Now, as far as drugs are concerned, if you read the report, it does state there are over 200 cases or leads or something. That has a very weird wording to it, of organized crime. And if you now think, oh my God, there's over 200 organized crime cases in the Isle of Man, is this like Sicily? The mafia's everywhere. No, I think it refers to like arrests and things. It's a bit of a weird wording in the report. This is not an organized crime hotspot, but we of course have drug gangs, crime gangs, trying to bring drugs here, trying to smuggle drugs in the UK maybe, I'm not quite sure. what the routes are. But you do read in the paper, you know, that people get busted on a regular basis for drugs, like everywhere else in the world. People like their drugs here. You know, it's just pretty normal. One word of warning I can give you on that is, in my opinion, you have to be supremely stupid to even think about importing and selling drugs in the Isle of Man, because they are super strict here. These guys, you know, they're not asleep. They will catch you eventually. It's a small place. Everyone knows everyone. It's just, I don't know, the mind boggles. But I guess where there's a market, there's always someone willing to take a risk. But yeah, you have to be supremely stupid to do that. And the courts here, by the way, do not mess about. When it comes to drug offenses, they regularly dish out very, very serious sentences. You go into prison for a long, long time if you're caught here, especially with Class A, with, you know, heroin and that kind of thing. You are going down for a long, long time. So, you know, just read the newspapers or do a Google search. They're not messing around here, the courts, and they don't like this kind of thing, and rightly so. Also, of course, if you are from the States or from Canada or any other place that now, even Germany, right? I mean, Germany, we legalized cannabis. Who would have thought? It's not legal here. It's not as relaxed as London, where you can walk around with a joint in your hand and the police probably has other problems. So don't bring, you know, your dope here. Don't smoke in public if you're into it. We're just not there yet. We're not as progressive as other places. Some people will like that. Other people will say it's a bad thing. Personally, I think we should have probably legalized it ages ago and taxed it, because I'd rather have 10 stoners around me than one drunk. But, you know, that's just my opinion. It is becoming legal on a medical basis. The GSC is now giving out cannabis licenses. I'm not quite sure how it works, but there is a cannabis pharmacy opening in Strand Street. So I guess if you have a prescription, you can have it. I don't know. Look into it. But other than that, stay away from drugs, because they're absolutely not kidding around with here if you get caught. So yeah, most crime we have, you know, alcohol, drunks fighting, drug stuff, some domestic stuff, of course, but nothing that you would really feel like it's a dangerous place or feel like you're unsafe or something. It's just, it doesn't happen. And that's a great thing. Of course, if you do commit an offense, and I made a separate video about this, then you may find yourself with your full name and address in the newspaper. And this is something I still disagree with. Now, they changed the law recently. It used to be for all offenses. They now changed it that if you're accused of a sexual offense, if it's pre-conviction, I believe, they cannot put your name in the paper, which I think is correct, because you are innocent until proven guilty, and it's a very small island. And people always think, oh, you wouldn't be in court if there wasn't something to it. So, but be aware of that. You know, if you are caught, for example, if you're silly and you're caught drink driving, or you nick something in a shop and you're caught and you go into court, your name and address and your picture, of course, will very likely be in the news, in the paper, and everyone will know about it, which in a small place like this can really make life difficult, or indeed destroy your career and that kind of thing. So just be aware of that. Unlike Singapore, we don't cane or birch people anymore, so you don't have to be worried about that one. I think they stopped birching people in the 1970s or thereabout. We do have a prison up in Derby. It used to be actually down here, down the road, but it's gone now. It's where the Duke pop-up hotel is during TT. Now it's in Derby, and apparently it's quite full. So yeah, there is crime here, but it's nothing that you would, as a normal person living here, really have to worry about. So to quickly wrap this up, because it's getting too long again, I have a talent for that. Does it feel like the 6th safest place on Earth? Having been to a lot of places on Earth, and even a lot of places on that list that are near us, to compare, yes, it does feel like one of the safest places on Earth. Always has, hopefully always will. And the best way to judge it for yourself, well, pop over, have a look at the place, and, you know, see for yourself that this is indeed a very safe and a very nice, although not always sunny place. That's it for this video. Thank you very much, and please like and subscribe. I have to say that, or Micah shouts at me. And I'll see you next time.